Hello, today is Friday, February 4th. We're about halfway through the cash session, and we wanted to talk about two stocks here, Facebook and PayPal. These are obviously very similar in the fact that they've had a 20-something% drop over the last few days. They have and neither of them have been able to really bounce or rally at all from that initial drop. And so we wanted to show you what the existing options position looks like, and then talk about some of the intraday flows that we've been seeing in an attempt to understand when these stocks may actually be able to catch something of a bounce, or if they're just going to keep getting sort of pressured lower. So again, it's very curious to us that really you had these big drops and there's been no attempt at a rally at all. No short covering. It doesn't look like puts are being closed. And, these are big legitimate companies here, right? So you would expect, hey, maybe some people would find some value here, but there really hasn't been any attempt. In fact, both of them are only a few percent off of their lows. Now, what's so curious about these lows, and we flagged this in real time on Twitter, is where the drop stopped, where that initial drop stopped. So if we just look at PayPal first, you can see that the initial drop came all the way down to about 130. Now, what's curious about that 130 level, you can see on this chart here on the right, there are two lines. There's an orange line and a blue line. And I'm going to talk about these a little more in a second, but basically this is the gamma profile for PayPal. And what you can see is that this goes from very vertical lines down to very flat lines where the lines thin out and shift almost parallel to the x-axis. And what that's telling us is that the gamma in the name, if you assume it's sort of most extreme position, the gamma flattens out around the 130 area. So that's curious to us that is where the stock, after dropping 20%, chooses to stop, is right in that 130 area. The suggestion here being that dealer flows or dealer hedging flows would start to tail off in this line as calls essentially are worth nothing anymore and puts have gone deep in the money, obviously after a 20% drop. So again, the hedging flows seem to, at their extreme, would sort of tail off again around 130. Now, if we do the same exercise with Facebook, what you can see here is that Facebook caught a bounce around the 235, 240 area. We posted this on the 3rd, which is the day that Facebook dropped 20%, and you can see that that gamma profile flattens out just under 250. So it's fascinating that both of these names dropped an extreme amount and both stopped at this area where the gamma profile flattens out and tails off. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of trading flow in these names after the initial drop, and so we want to take a quick look at our Equity Hub tool to update the positions there. So here we have PayPal loaded. Now, if you're interested in trying out the Equity Hub yourself, you can. Just head over to SpotGamma.com. You get a free 7-day trial. But here you can see that, okay, 125, 130 is where the stock is trading. And now, because a lot of puts have been added and calls have been added, the profile now flattens out closer around $90. But what you'll notice is that the most steep area of the gamma curves now goes 130 into roughly 140. And so there's still a lot of volatility potential or upside bounce potential, we think, for the stock to rally all the way up into 150 if the stock starts to catch a bit and maybe if some of the existing options positions change and adjust. Now, to that point, we note that 24% of the gamma in this name appears to roll off on Friday the 4th, which is today. So this could be a catalyst to get the stock to rally back some. In general, we believe the expiration of large options positions can help change the direction of a prevailing trend. You will also notice that the largest put open interest in PayPal is at 190. So that suggests there are a lot of very deep in the money puts in this name. And if some of those are closed, that can help sort of lift some of the weight, we think, off of PayPal stock. Now, second, we want to check Facebook, which has a pretty similar update to its profile. Remember, it was very flat and tailed off around the 230 area with the addition of all the recent positions the last 2 days. Now, the gamma profile seems to flatten out closer down to 200. But again, it's a very vertical profile, suggesting the potential for a lot of gamma-induced volatility that as dealers step up and adjust their hedges that could really push the stock up. We think it's pretty achievable for the stock to rally back sharply, certainly up into the 260 area. But again, you'll note that we show roughly 18% of gamma expires today. That's the 4th. 2 days ago, if we look back, and this is the same thing for PayPal, if you look back on the day of the drop, it's only yesterday that the top gamma expiration shifted to this Friday. So most of the gamma was concentrated in the 18th, and it's just shorter term positions that have really come into the name over the last 2 days. And so that suggests that a lot of short-term players are impacting this name and pushing it around. And so again, the expiration of some pretty big options positions today, that's Friday the 4th, could change Facebook's trend and ease some of the pressure that could be holding the stock down. Now, for both of these names, we saw some pretty fascinating real-time options flow, and we want to talk about that here. On your screen, what you're looking at is the real-time options deltas traded for PayPal. Now, in this case, what you'll notice is that both of these lines are positive, which suggests that the options trades taking place are positive delta trades. That is, people selling puts and buying calls. The thing that caught us and was quite interesting the last few days is that the predominant flow in both PayPal and Facebook was call selling. It was heavy call selling. There was some put selling, just light, but it was heavy call selling, which is actually negative delta trades. And we believe that a lot of those trades were volatility-related trades wherein traders were trying to take advantage of that elevated implied volatility by selling call options, and they likely bought the stock as an associated hedge. And so that, we think, was actually what was pressuring these stocks lower. There were puts being closed, which makes sense because the stock dropped 20% and implied volatility spikes. In general, that's a good time to close out put options, right? But it's also a curiously good time to sell calls. We talked about a similar situation in the GameStop AMC sagas where volatility was going crazy and a lot of smart traders were selling put options for extremely high values. And that was actually influencing the stock to go higher. So in this case, it's a similar thing where you're selling calls and those call deltas may be pressuring the stock lower. So here today, we actually see people are starting to buy calls. They're selling puts, and now the stock, that is PayPal, is having a pretty good rally and seems to maybe be finding some footing. Now here we've loaded Facebook, and the flow today is not quite the same that we're seeing in PayPal. As you can see here, the put flow is fairly neutral on the day, and the call flow is negative, which is again implying that people are out there selling calls in Facebook, possibly trying to take advantage of this high implied volatility. So if this call selling flow backs off, that could lead to a self-reinforcing rally where the stock starts to rally. People will cover more puts. They got to buy back. And if those call sellers are volatility trades, they're going to have to buy stock as well to keep their hedges in place. And so we look at expiration as the potential for these stocks to rally based on this change in options positioning, which is sparked by today's expiration. If you head over to SpotGamma.com and you hit subscribe now, you can get a free 7-day trial of the Equity Hub service. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below or send us an email at info@spotgamma.com. Thanks.